Yes, indeed. What a wonderful day. Another day with the Reentry Connect podcast. Yes, the Reentry Connect podcast. It's your host, Keenan Hudson. Yes, we got another special guest here today. We got another special guest. His name is Mr. John Lundell. I call him the doctor. He said, "Hey, Keenan, don't call me the doctor, but I call him the doctor." And we're here with a special gift tonight. Again, he says this title is so important. It's getting beyond it all. Here he is a best-selling author, great author. We're going to touch more. He's going to share what his book is, where you can find it. But not only that, he's here to share his experience, share his knowledge, and share all the things that he's involved with concerning the reentry field. A lot of people know that this podcast is specifically to bring awareness, is to bring information to people that may not have the knowledge of what's going on with this field and how important it is to obtain a job, how important it is to obtain the correct housing, how important it is to found a good foundation. But that's what we're here for. We're here for that. We're here to make everyone aware in the world. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the doctor, Mr. John Jeffrey Lundell. And we welcome you. We thank you for coming here to share everything with us. So you go ahead and take it over and let us know a little about who you are.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's a privilege to be with you, Keenan. Really, thank you. And yes, so I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, where I have lived for nearly 18 years. However, I was born and raised in Minnesota, grew up in northeastern Minnesota, not too far from the Canadian border. And so after a number of years there, then I moved to the West Coast, and I've been on the West Coast for a long time. So now I'm all of those folks up there in the winter right now, it's cold. I'm a West Coast weenie now after all these years being on the West side. So, but I've been involved in reentry, actually a couple different phases of my life. When I was younger, not that many years out of college, I worked for a program, a federal program called CETA. And it was around for, 20 or 30 years. And it was an employment program funded through the federal government to help get people back on track. So that was my first time working really with the reentry. It was with people still in incarceration, people coming out of incarceration, but a variety of other life situations as well. So that was my first dabbling. And, then I took a fairly long hiatus. I was in business for many, many years in Seattle primarily. And then when I moved back, or I should say moved here to Nevada, I moved to Las Vegas. It was an opportunity to get back into some of those things I did when I was a younger guy. And workforce development was a big part of that, which turned into working in the reentry area. And I worked with the Nevada Department of Corrections here in Las Vegas with the reentry facility. The name of it is Casa Grande. So I worked on the workforce development side, helping people reenter or helping people with getting back in the workforce when their sentence was about to expire. And so I worked there for a number of years, and then I moved from there and I went to work with the Salvation Army here in Las Vegas at the Owens campus, and I was their vocational training manager for many years as well. And so in that area, I really dealt with a lot of folks coming from a variety of different backgrounds. It's not only people coming out of prison, people coming off the street. The Salvation Army in Las Vegas is located in the homeless corridor. So it's Catholic Charities, it's a rescue mission, it's Salvation Army, working with people that, are coming off the street or still on the street, but also assisted people coming out of recovery, reentry programs for, drug and alcohol problems. And also people, that ended up homeless for a variety of emotional and mental, issues and so forth. So my focus on reentry is pretty broad. And I look at it as, anytime somebody is knocked out of the mainstream of life, knocked out of the workforce, they're out for whatever reason, whether they're down or whether they're doing something else. They have to then get themselves back together and start this process of moving forward. And as you and I were talking about, earlier, my focus has primarily been focused on employment, helping people to get back into the workforce in one form or another, because sometimes people are able to re-enter through entrepreneurship or some other, perhaps some other business that is not a job.
So, Mr. John, just to ask real fast. So now I know you're speaking from a perspective of experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know that you did time at one point.
I did not. No, I've never done time myself.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Not the time, but you've done enough. You had enough experience with the re-entry sector of the people that has done time. I'm sorry for saying that. So when you were seeing a lot of the guys transition, when you see a lot of the different patterns, what made you want to take on the workforce to be like the primary sector of you helping them when they came out of prison?
Growing up in Minnesota, it's primarily a blue collar background, a working background. So that whole part of life, working, something that's just kind of burned into my DNA. So I always look at that as being such an important escalator in life. Most people, 90% of people, the way that they get ahead in life is in one form or another through employment. And so when you're re-entering, it's pretty obvious. Obviously, you need other things. You need shelter. You need food. You need other specific things. You need an ID. You need a driver's license. You need healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. You need all of those things. So yes, of course. And certainly when I was with the Salvation Army, it was we had a facility, so people lived on campus. And so those other aspects were very important. But it all funneled to one thing, which was to get back out into the workforce in one form or another. Simply because, to answer your question in a broader sense, I believe the goal for all helpers, regardless of what kind of helping role, whether you're a teacher or a therapist or you're somebody helping somebody in a homeless shelter, we should have an objective. What is it that we're trying to do? So in reentry, what's the point of reentering? In my mind, it is one thing, is to help people to become independent, self-sufficient, and citizens in good standing. Again, and that's it. So, where you care to live or how you care to live your life and so forth, and the career that you want to do, or the work you do, or the people you hang with, or the people you marry, that's your choice. But we should all want for people self-sufficiency. Yeah, you don't want to be dependent on others or the government. Independence. You want to run your own life to the best of your own ability, and you want to be a citizen in good standing. Simply, in a broad sense, means, Keenan and I live next to each other. I'm not going to throw garbage on your lawn, and you're not going to throw it on mine, and we're going to get along okay. But you live your life, and I'll live my life, and we'll all get along as citizens. That's the objective. So when we're looking at people coming out of incarceration or coming out of treatment or coming off the street or whatever the circumstance, where are we going? What is the objective? The objective is to become self-sufficient and independent, and we're hoping a citizen in good standing in your own way. That's it.
So, Mr. John, if you don't mind me to intervene. So one of the most complicated things I see a lot of individuals deal with is independency. Most times when people return from prison, a lot of times they look for a crutch to lean on, whether it be a family member, whether it be some type of female that they dealt with in the past, or someone to hold on to. Because a lot of times some are intimidated that they're not able to tread water in any type of way because they think they'll drown without the proper support. Now, when you mention independency, we know that most people come through a halfway house. They may come, again, transitional housing or even staying with a family member. But sometimes it seems as if they get glued to a certain location because they're scared to step out on faith by themselves.
Right.
So, in what ways do you encourage individuals that are in that situation to learn to step out towards the independency?
So, two concepts that are important in this respect. And the first one is to start the process of seeing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's easy to say, but it's hard to do, to see themselves as free agents.
Mm-hmm.
We all know free agents in the sporting world. You're no longer with the Bengals, and now maybe you're going to play for the Seahawks. So, but in this particular case, you are a free agent in life, whether you are at the moment dependent on someone else or some other situation. In order to reduce the dependency, that first has to start here to say, okay, I am a free agent. I have, to a degree, I have my own autonomy.
Wow.
I'm working toward, the whole idea of being self-sufficient and independent, that's our aspiration. That's where we're moving. So wouldn't it be nice to get to that point? But it doesn't happen like that, as you know. So free agency is real important. So to take themselves aside and say, okay, just like the agent that was cut from, or just like the athlete that was cut from the Bengals,
Mm-hmm.
and the rude awakening on Monday morning is that, hey, I'm no longer a Bengal. I'm now a free agent. Now what? The other thing is, and this is an important concept, to take a good look at what I call their personal job one. By that, I mean, what is it that caused you to get into this situation? So if you are an addict, how are you going to become an employed person moving forward towards some kind of independence if you're still using? So your personal job one, before anything else happens really that's good and productive in your life, whether it's relationships or employment or accumulating some wealth, etc., starts with the first thing, which is you got to get sober and you have to get clean, right? Wow. So that's the first thing you mentioned earlier on in the podcast about foundations, building on a foundation. So often I have seen people will not address the foundational issue, which is if you're an alcoholic and you think you're going to go out and and sustain that employment and still drink, it ain't happening. If you're using and you're not clean, it's going to come around every single time and it's going to hook you. And by then, here's the problem. If you're able to get on a bit, now maybe the others, you mentioned people in your life that you are needing help from, they're also cheering for you. It's like, oh man, John is now moving forward. Oh, at last, it's coming around for him. And of course, you move into that, but you've not done the foundational work, which only means you get fired or something happens. And now everybody in your life goes, oh man, again, here we go again. So that is so important, is to say, what is that one issue? And it's always one. And so if it has to do with, criminality, it's again, very easy to say, but so important. Is that the environment for you to be going back to? You're going to hang with the same people. You're going to start doing the same thing, and you're expecting something different this time. How does that work? Just like the alcoholic, you're going to continue to drink. You think you're going to go out and get the job. It's not happening. You're not clean anymore. You're still using and you're not clean. you're not going to be able to get the job, which means you're not going to be able to move forward. So the foundational issue, your personal job, you got to take a good look at that.
Yeah,
So once you see yourself as a free agent, you
absolutely.
say, what is it that what is my big issue here? I've got to
Mm.
address that. That's where the support comes in, Keenan. That's where you say to your family, or you say to somebody from your church, or you say to your sponsor, this is the one thing that has always taken me down. I got to get on this one.
Now, one thing, Mr. John, because I noticed that a lot of other things as well concerning the foundational part. The foundational part, it definitely consists of a few components. We know that it's always going to start with a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Within that plan is going to be the employment. Within that employment is going to be your housing. Really, the housing comes before the employment. But then all the other things, are like additions as far as your recreation, your spirituality. A lot of different things fall in the tag. But it seems like people they have a plan, but then they just do away with it because things are not working the way that they were working inside. Same with employment. And I know we'll stick sort of what on the workforce, but a lot of people think the same way that they were scrubbing showers inside will be the same work ethic you got to have out here in the world. Absolutely not. It's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, yes, you were working in the kitchen where you were serving trays, or you were a linebacker, or even if you were a cook. Like, yeah, you were a cook, but you didn't work a whole 8 to 12 hour shift straight, as most cooks do here in the world. So now it becomes a different work environment. It becomes a different work ethic. And then it also becomes like a different, how can I say it? More so like a work ability, which coincides with ethic. But people get it misconstrued that you have to work for your keep out here.
Mm-hmm.
You have to literally do that. And as you said, if your environment doesn't change, yeah, you'll drift back to the drugs. Yeah, you'll drift back to the criminality and going back to the streets and doing what you know best. Because things are not just handed to people. People actually work for things.
Mm-hmm.
So but and at the same time, a lot of times everybody, because everybody comes from a different environment. Everybody has a different background, a different story. Some people were brought up with silver spoons in their mouths. Some, could barely find a meal as they was growing up because of the parents' drug use and, the negligence of their guardians and things to that nature. But I noticed that everybody can have a chance, though. You can have a chance to change with the right resources, with the right people in your corner, with the right connections. That's why, again, I always bring up with the Reentry Connect podcast that it's to build connection, it's to build community, it's to build, a network in a way where there may be somebody out there that can help somebody within that arena. Like we had people on here from New York, from Delaware, from Jersey, Philly, Missouri, like you say, Minnesota, Nevada, California, and Texas. A lot of other places are coming up as well. So I just encourage people to definitely take heed and to look for that type of connection or the type of network. That's why people share their contact and their resources so that we can find the best help for individuals out here in the world. But I'm sorry, Mr. John, if we could get back to with the workforce. So on average, at the you said it's La Casa Grande, right?
Casa Grande. Mm-hmm.
Casa
That's
Grande.
a reentry facility here in Vegas.
Okay. So by chance, at any given time, how many individuals does that facility hold?
Well, I was there. It wasn't that many. Of course, it continually rotated,
Okay.
So I think that there was, I just don't remember exactly, somewhere around 100 to 200. But there were times when it was down, depending on 50, and, it would just go up and down. people would stay there about 3 months, in some cases a little longer.
Okay.
And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a couple other things that are important, you know, I'll give you an idea of what it looks like. You know, Casa Grande is one thing. You know, as a matter of fact, when I went to the Salvation Army, went to the Owens campus, you know, a lot of the people that I would see on the street, you know, were people that, you know, I'd seen in the system, which was kind of nice, to be honest with you, because I mean, not nice, because I know people are having a tough time, but people, you know, we knew each other, and you know how it works. If you're trying to do good work and you're straight up with people, your reputation finds its way just very quickly. So people on the street would say, okay, I know this guy from the system, so, you know, he'll be straight with you. And that was really helpful to me, because that meant I could talk to people very quickly, you know, in a way. We didn't have a lot of barriers, and we could get down to business quickly. But it's a sequence, you know, so I'm a very process-oriented person. So you mentioned a plan. Yes, of course, you know, planning and sequence. So we have a large plan, but then you have these miniature plans in between. Plans are strategy, you know, the small plans are tactics. And so, you know, to be really successful on the reentry side, as far as work was concerned, had to develop many tactics to help people, you know. So for example, you know, talking on the telephone sometimes is very difficult. I don't know. It was just very hard for folks, right? So we would role play, you know, come up with a script and help people, you know, introduce themselves, because, you know, you would fill out an application or put in your resume. It would come back to you in terms of a telephone call. Well, you'd have to return that call. So John has to call Keenan. You know, hi, Keenan, this is John. I'm returning your call. And now what do I say? So we would go through role play to bring their anxiety level down so they're more comfortable. Because if they can't communicate, they can't make that connection. You know, in the book, one of my bylines in the book is, you're not looking for a job as a reentry person. You're looking for a person.
Okay, in your book.
Yeah. In my book, you're not looking for a job, you're looking for a person, which means in most cases, this is kind of old school, but I think it still applies, that, you know, just going out there and competing digitally with every other, you know, person that's throwing all kinds of spaghetti at the wall resume wise, it doesn't work well, because you're easy to eliminate. You've got a background problem. You are a reentry person. There's, if you don't have, you know, something on your record straight away, like a felony, you have gaps, or you have other things that the recruiter will immediately see. And I've spent many years on the recruiting side, so I understand how that works on the, you know, on the profit side. So the idea is, you as the reentering person hoping to get your foot in the door with that first job, you want, if you can, to make the connection to a person. And, you know, I realize, depending on where people live, you maybe not have the opportunity to introduce yourself to somebody. To go out in person anymore is more difficult. Everything is done online. But in many cases, you do have the opportunity to go out and apply for a position, you know, a warehouse position, you know, a food service position, where you introduce yourself in person. The key is, you're not looking for the job. Yes, of course, that's what you want. But I'm looking for Keenan. So if I'm the person, I would go out and introduce myself. I'd say, you know, Keenan, hi, my name is John. And, you know, I've made application. I really would like the opportunity, if I can, to, you know, speak to the hiring manager. And when you do get an opportunity to speak to the hiring manager, you got to determine when you say it. I call it delivering the mail. I say, you know, before we go too far, Mr. Hudson, I got to tell you, there's something in my background that you need to know about. Right? You don't go like this, because I, as a hiring manager or the recruiter, I'm going to find out I'm going to find out sooner or later, regardless of what the sequence is.
Regardless.
But if I introduce myself to you first, if I have the opportunity and I say, I don't want to waste your time, Keenan. I want you to know this about me. What does that do? Number one, if you can't hire me because of the regulations within the employment regulations within your company, you say, geez, I'm sorry, John, it's just not allowed. If I've handled myself well, if I've been honest and straight up with you, I have seen many times what will happen is that hiring manager will say, I'm sorry, I can't. It's just not allowed because we can't hire felons here.
Wow.
However, I appreciate you making the effort. Hold on a minute. I'm going to get a number of somebody you can call.
Wow. That's
so
it.
If I don't make that connection, I'll never do it. And it's that foot in the door. So you talk about a plan, and this is really hard work. But getting that first position, the other thing many times will happen is people will invest too much time in that. It's like, oh, I'm in now. I've got my job. But you say, you actually want to move on. You want to move. So you have to start planning for your next job.
Exactly.
But you have to be in a good position. You have to do the work. You have to be a good employee. You have to do all of those things so that when it's time to move to the next step to make more money or to move forward, you've got people now that are in your corner because you met a person. You didn't just go after the job.
Exactly. And Mr. John, and you make a good point when it comes to being upfront, being honest, letting out, like you said, you can let the cat out the hat, but at the right and the proper timing.
Yes.
And that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be honest, because like you said, the employer is going to find out regardless because they're going to run a background check as they do with any job. So it's good to be upfront at the beginning because you never know the connection that you can make with that employer or hiring manager that may know somebody that may hire somebody in your situation.
Correct.
And if you do land a job, don't take it for granted because, again, that could just be temporary employment. And then you could probably move in other places, move in other different directions, but you're building your resume. So when you do go to these other jobs, you can always put certain references down, that will give you a good report if they were to contact them or not.
Because that's so important what you say, because that's where the human factor comes in there. Because that blemish, your background report it's not going to change. That felony, in many cases, most cases, it's not going to vanish.
Yeah.
Right. So there are ways for that to happen, but again, it's laborious. It takes time, it's effort, and so forth. It's back to the original problem of just staying on track in the beginning. So that's why you need the person. You need that person at the warehouse to say, John's worked with me now for a year, and so I hate to see him go. I mean, he's good. He's here. He works. He gets along. He's better than most of those guys back there. I hate to see him go, but he told me that he was going to look around at some point for another job. And because he's worked hard for me and he's done a good job, how can I not support him going forward? So, good. I'm happy to give him a recommendation. Do what I can, because he's making it happen. Back to the whole concept of being a free agent, because that person that doesn't lock into the one job and say, that's it, I found my job forever. Give me a break. That doesn't happen these days, especially, right? So that person needs to say, as a free agent, I need to start planning for my second job, even though, I'm just kind of getting started on my first job. And it's a process, but it can be done. In many cases, 3 jobs, maybe 3 jobs in a period of 4 to 5 years is kind of a perfect fit. If you're successfully able to navigate that first job to go to a second and a second to a third, you are doing well. In many cases, you've developed those personal contacts that will, help you transcend the limitations of the background problem.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. John, if you don't mind, could you touch on your book and tell us what inspired you to write the book, and also a little bit about the book and where they can find it?
Well, the book is called Get Beyond Your Troubled Past, and it's on Amazon. That's the easiest place to find it. Why did I write it? Because working in the prison system, as well as working, with the Salvation Army, there's a lot of years there and a lot of different things that I saw, and a lot of different techniques that I kept notes on. And so I felt, first of all, for me, just to put it all under one umbrella, I wanted to put that together. I also have a sales background. And so I found that taking a sales approach to re-entering, to finding a job and to moving forward in a job was very helpful. Because, basically what you're doing is you're selling your service to someone, right? And again, back to the free agency and understanding the mindset is that, you're not completely in the situation where, you've got your hat in your hand and your basket, and you're walking around. No, actually, you're selling your service. So you're looking for a customer. You're not just the job and it's a person, but you're looking for a customer, somebody's going to buy your services. And very difficult, but it's very important to kind of keep that in mind, because then you can say to yourself, well, if I'm working in a warehouse, for example, and I'm showing up late and I'm not really part of this program, I'm getting a paycheck, but I'm not really into it. Now, as a seller of service, how am I doing? How am I if I see myself as a free agent and I'm out and I'm taking myself seriously and I'm selling my service and I'm taking money for that in terms of a paycheck, well, how am I doing? What kind of service am I providing? How am I doing compared to the other people here? Am I better? Am I worse? How am I doing in terms of the overall, progress towards my plan? Very, very important. So the book really is kind of a combination of examples of people that I have met and worked with over the years, and also a very sequential, step-by-step approach to moving forward. And again, the overall objective is to become somebody that is self-sufficient, independent, and a citizen in good standing. That's the whole objective.
Yeah, Mr. John, do you have the book in front of you so we can see the cover to make sure it's the correct cover?
I do. This is one of my proofs, so I'm working on a second edition here, but there you go. See, cool. Work in progress here.
Work in progress, cool.
Yep.
So that is the book right there, Get Beyond Your Troubled Past, by Mr. John Lundell. We appreciate that so much that you're sharing. So, Mr. Lundell, if there's anything that you can say to encourage the individuals that are listening, family members that may have loved ones inside, or even individuals that's probably literally transitioning right now from the halfway house or transition or recovery home, what would you say as a form of advice or encouragement for them, to keep up with the good trajectory in their life?
Yeah, first of all, is have a plan. It's part of the book and you've referred to it and it's basically you need that. And secondly, to be willing, primarily internally, to admit your fear, meaning each step in the plan requires, facing new situations where you're going out and you're meeting new people, you're out of your comfort zone, especially in the case of somebody's reentering from incarceration. You've been in a really cloistered environment, completely different culture. You're relating to things differently. Now, all of a sudden you're out and, most of the world is out, not in. So you now have to adjust to how most of the world works. And it's difficult. So there's, regardless of the individual, there's fear, and it's only human. And so addressing that, one of the interesting things was really kind of a fun thing that I would do with folks, again, going back to the Salvation Army experience where we had people living on campus and they would go out and, look for work and, start moving forward on the process. I would say, imagine that if I could give you a virtual, kind of a get out of jail card in a sense, meaning that this card you can use when somebody is not pleasant to you, somebody disrespects you, somebody is just flat out mean to you, somebody is going to push you away because of your background issue. You get to use this card. This is a pretend card, but you get to play this card, which is going to help you kind of transcend and move past all of that. So you're going to start on Monday and you're going to go through the week, and everybody got a card. And so what I would say at the end of the week is, okay, I know everybody's been working hard. You've been out and you've been working on things in your own individualized plans. So how many cards you guys used? None. Because having the card, this pretend silly virtual little nothing card, was kind of a little shield. Because people say, well, I can't do it. Somebody's going to be, somebody could disrespect me. They're going to pick up on it, whatever it is, right? I don't want to be in that situation. I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be. I said, well, you got your card, so just go out and try it. So how did it go? Did you use your card today, Mr. Johnson? I did not use my card. How did it go? People were all right. So the fear thing, it's real because we are human beings and we all have, those internal issues depending on who we are and what happened to us.
Yeah.
But address that, say, okay, it's okay to be afraid with each new and uncomfortable, sequence of events you have to go through in order to progress on your plan. It's okay. And it's okay to also tell the people around you, your family members, the people that are helping you and supporting you in this phase where you're dependent, you're working toward independence, but you're not there yet. It's okay to say, look, I'm really uncomfortable here, man. This is so that other people can say, all right, well, let's take it together. Let's go together. You go out and I'll come back and tell me how it went. I'll debrief you. Then now you have some kind of bond as you move forward.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that, Mr. John. And as he said, it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to come out not knowing what's going on, not knowing, where you're going to get your meal from. It's okay. But there are places, there are people that will help you. You don't have to feel, as though that you don't have anything out here because there's always somewhere to turn. We just have to search, put in the work. It's going to be hard work. Nothing's going to come easy. I share that all the time. Things come over time. I try to definitely encourage people to always look at the bright side of things. Things could be worse. You could still be in prison. You could still be on death row. You could still have a life sentence. You could still be in a county jail. But you're free. You have time to reform your life. You have time to make the changes deemed necessary for you to have a better life for your family, better life for your kids, better life for, individuals around you, a better life for you to give back to the community, to show yourself, hey, this is what I've been through. You don't have to go through it either, especially for a lot of the younger people, a lot of younger youth that are looking up to a lot of individuals that's been inside. A lot of times people refer to them OGs or old school, got time men and things like that. We can always be that example to anybody. So I understand that. I know we're coming up on time, but it's your host, Keenan Hudson, here on the Reentry Connect podcast. Get beyond it all with Mr. John Lundell. I'm telling you, once again, he's the best-selling author right here with we got his book here on the screen, Get Beyond Your Trouble Past. And we know that you can find it on Amazon. Just asking that you go support, get his book, check his book out. And without further ado, Mr. John, if you could tell them if they wanted to contact you, what are some of your socials or email address, if you can just shout it out to them, if you would like.
Certainly, yeah. The easiest way, not everybody's on LinkedIn, but that's the area where I'm on LinkedIn all the time, John Jeffrey Lundell. You can find me on LinkedIn. And my email address, one of many, right?
But tell me about it.
Yeah. The easiest one to, as far as reentry is concerned, is getbeyonditall@gmail.com.
Getbeyonditall@gmail.com.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Hope everybody got that. So again, we'll post it in the chat as well. So without further ado, we're coming to the end of the show. Mr. John, we thank you. We appreciate having you on here. Hope to have you on one of the round tables in the near future where we got other guests and we're just discussing all things reentry. You know, again,
Wonderful.
This broadcast is to bring forth some good knowledge and understanding with individuals, and we appreciate having you. So without further ado, everybody have a good night, good day, good rest of your day. We appreciate everybody for coming out and supporting and viewing this stream. So without further ado, everybody take care.